Hello. So I'm literally talking and I wasn't even live. Hello, everyone. We are on week 2 of the Stop It Now challenge. And I'm excited to be here. Let me make sure I cut off my devices and let me make sure that I'm live uh, in my groups and live on Instagram. And so we are here for the second week of the Stop It Now challenge. Um, let's see. Hmm, let me see here. So let's get to going. If you have any comments, make sure you put those in the chat. Again, I'm managing 3 screens right now, so give me some grace. So this week we talked about self-love and all about what self-love is. Okay. So if you were following, we had some affirmations or some statements that you could do. But before we do that, I do want to say some things. Okay. So first, thank you for coming to the Stop and Now challenge. But I do want to also uh, do a statement because I think that we have a lot of going on in the world today, and with the fires and just the political climate. But I did want to give a shout out to the individuals in California, some of my clients, some of my loved ones. I reached out, but I do want them to know that that we stand with you. And I want to thank the firefighters and just the communities that's coming together. We're seeing so much community rallying together for those donations and things like that. It's just a tragic event that's happening. And I want those individuals to know that we're praying for them. So I hope that you guys are praying for them, keeping them lifted in your prayers and things like that. Okay. All right. So our hearts go out and prayers go out to those who are affected by that. All right. All right. So as we move forward, again, this is a question and answer session. So if you have any questions, just make sure you post them. The people who did submit questions, I want to say I'm thankful for you submitting those. If you can hear me, let me know because I do have this mic on because I wanted to, sound more closer to the mic. I see that my cameras are kind of freezing. Forgive me for that. I don't know why they're doing that. All right. So remember, life is an acronym. So love of self, interactions with others, focus and energy. So each week, the purpose of this is to really go in depth about some things that you should stop doing in the love of self, in our interactions with others, in our focus, in our energy. Okay. So, at our core this week, I think that the mission was to really stop behaviors that undermine our self worth. Let me cut this off. Hold on one second. Stop behaviors that really undermine our self worth. Um, really start making decisions that prioritizes our well-being and our growth, and just to give us a sense of peace, because I think we're looking for peace outside of us, and really peace is a decision that we make on the inside. And I talk about emotions as, or some of the things that we're looking for as being consequences. So when I do one thing, the consequence of doing that is peace, love, trust, happiness, right? And I think that the we're looking for the peace, right? first, and then we want to do the action afterwards. We're looking for love first, and then we want to do the action afterwards, when truly those things are consequences. So at the core, this week's message was all about embracing self love through intentional acts, like the intentional things that we are doing to really show ourselves what love feels like. A lot of us just have not been introduced to love. We don't have an understanding of what love is. I heard somebody say we came from broken systems, broken parents, broken thoughts, right? And we've developed a broken strategy, right? Not that we're broken, because we are created by God. So, and we had a survivor. If you believe that, Jesus or Yahshua the Messiah came to die for your sins, then we know that there is a savior there. So there's a broken strategy that we're using to really attain the things of life. And I created that framework, the Stop It Now framework, to really help stop that strategy so that you can start something different. So on day 6, what we talked about was your love of self, right? We talked about loving yourself by honoring your needs. Stop neglecting your self care and treating yourself like an afterthought. So, really about prioritizing yourself unapologetically. Because the truth is that you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? So when we neglect ourselves, it leads to burnout and resentment. What do I mean by resentment? A lot of us are doing things, I say, with this hook, right? We like, if I do this, right, this will happen. I just talked about this consequential type of thinking, but this is more of a transactional type of thought. Like, if I'm kind to them, if I give them more, if I say yes to them, then they'll like me, they'll love me, they'll say yes to me. And when that doesn't happen, then we start to build resentment. And I tell people this: the sacrifices that you make, nobody understands that cost that you're paying. So they probably can never repay you back that debt. So if you're sacrificing your values, your beliefs, your morals, right, to do something for somebody else, and you're expecting them to pay you back that in their actions and their beliefs, then you're always going to come up short. And that space between coming up short is what we call resentment. Like, we start to build that. So studies have shown that when people prioritize their self-care, right, reports show a 30% increase. Listen, a 30% decrease in our stress and a 20% increase in our productivity. So a lot of us are wondering, like, why am I why I'm not feeling healthy, why am I don't have the energy, right? Because you're really not prioritizing your health, you're really not prioritizing yourself, and as a consequence of that, you are not as productive in your life. So a big part of being more productive and less stressful is to learn how to really have this self-care and self-love, right, and really pour into yourself. All right. Any questions about that? All right. So in day 7, we said the caption was, stop comparing yourself to others. Focus on your unique journey, right? And celebrate your personal progress. This is very challenging for people. But listen, the truth is, comparison is the thief of joy, which often leads to feelings of inadequacy, right? We can never truly add up to someone else's life. I mean, even as siblings, that I have 3 sons, they have both the same mom and dad, but they're different, right? They got the same blood in them, but they're different, right? So when we start to compare ourselves to other people, right, we won't ever measure up to that, right? And then also, the great thing in really staying in your race and really living at your own pace, right? Lay up in it, is that research shows that when we practice gratitude for our own journey, right, in our own experience, we find that we have a 5% greater life satisfaction. So when I focus on the person I was yesterday compared to the person I am today, or the person I was 10 years ago compared to the person I am today, when I just focus on my own journey, then I am more satisfied because I can see the changes, right? But if I'm looking at who I am today compared to who my friend is or who somebody is on social media, like I am doing myself a disservice. So when we stop comparing ourselves to others, we actually free up, or we actually feel free to appreciate ourselves a whole lot more. All right. And day 8, we said stop putting, if you have any questions or comments about that, or if you agree or disagree, let me know. Day 8 was all about stop putting others' opinions about you above your self worth in your actions, right? So the action was, above your self worth, the action was to trust your instinct and prioritize your values over external validation. Here's the issue with this one: a lot of us don't know what we value, right? And this week I was very intentional about these self-care items. Like I really wanted them to kind of make you think a little bit, right? Or to stretch you a little bit, right? Because I think that it's easy to say, stop. And it's not that I'm not dismissing it, but I think it's some easier things that I could have put on to say, hey, stop doing this, stop doing that. But I really wanted to challenge and stretch you. So when we say prioritize your values, right? I think the question is, well, what is it that I value at this grown person that I am today? Not the values that my mother told me, not the values that I was told by society I should have, but what actually do I value, right? And when I can trust my instincts, right, and starting to believe, even if I'm wrong, giving myself grace, but starting to believe this instinctiveness about myself, and I can prioritize my values and my beliefs over external validation, then these are the incremental things that I can start doing to really transform my life and my relationship with myself. And when I can do that, then I can start incrementally changing the relationship that I start to have with other people. Because the truth is, worrying about others' opinions often hold us back from living authentically, right? It's so many of us out here who are not living in our truth because we worried about what my mama gonna say, what somebody else gonna say, what the people gonna say at the church, what the people gonna say at my job, and it's stopping us back from living in our authentic truth. But studies show that people who focus on their intrinsic motivation, which is the things that's inside of them that motivate them, they are 40% more likely to achieve their goals. Not, listen, 40% more likely to achieve their goals. So when I'm doing the thing that I want to do because it's intrinsic and it's motivating me, I have the energy, I have the emotional fortitude to fight the naysayers. That is what that's saying, right? Because I feel good about myself enough that it can overshadow whatever it is that you think about me, right? And that's what that intrinsic motivation is. But if I'm already out of pocket, I'm already in somebody else's lane or trying to do what somebody else told me to do, I'm drained. One. Now, when somebody judges me for that or has some type of, I don't know, opinion about that, right? I don't have the energy to really even handle that or deal with that because I'm already out of alignment and I'm already out of value. So it just becomes a bigger weight on me. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, put a heart or a comment for me. All right. Um, and And what this means is that by putting your self-worth above uh, external validation allows you to make decisions that aligns with your true self. And I always say God created you for a reason. And it's your job to figure that out. And that ain't an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. but it's definitely necessary. Thank you, Kiki. All right. Day 9, I challenge you to stop procrastinating on actions that that nurture your well-being, right? And then the action behind that was just to take one small step today to care for your physical, mental, and emotional health. All right. A lot of us have plans to start the gym or plans to start reading affirmations or plans to journal and things like that. And we have such a big plan because we have such a big idea of the person that we want to become that when we start off, it becomes overwhelming or we can't sustain it or we can't pick it up. And I get that, right? Because we want to be fit and we want to be wealthy and we want to be loved and we want to be all of these great things that we feel like we're not experiencing in this moment. And remember, procrastination often stems from fear of overwhelm, right? Keeping you stuck in the unhealthy pattern. So when you have all of these beliefs or all of these desires, you can actually be stuck in a pattern that makes you procrastinate because you want to do a lot. All right. So research shows that when people make self-care a priority, they report higher levels of happiness and lower levels of stress. All right. What this means is that when you, when you prioritize your well-being, you actually increase levels in your life, happiness and levels in your life. All right. So we really have to stop procrastinating. So we need to start to take small steps towards our physical, mental, and emotional health. All right. On day 10, I challenge you to stop sabotaging your goals. All right. With unhealthy habits and actions. So we always talk about like self-sabotage, our self-sabotage. And a lot of times sabotaging is it's an unconscious thing. We don't even know that we're sabotaging ourselves, you guys, right? Because we have sometimes a conflict in belief against the change that we want, right? I'm a be transparent. So for me, the idea of getting healthy, right, meant that I would become more attractive, right? The idea of becoming more attractive meant that I would have to face more people that would possibly try to be attracted to me or whatever. At that time, I didn't really want to deal with rejecting them, right? So because I didn't want to deal with the outcome of what I defined as beautiful would be. Like I didn't really want all this attention. I didn't want guys in my DMs and all of that. Unconsciously, I was self-sabotaging my health, right? Because in my mind, I told myself that, getting healthy would enhance my beauty. Enhancing my beauty will make me more attractive to men. Making me more attractive to men, meaning that more men will try to, talk to me. When more men try to talk to me, that means that now I got to deal with rejecting these men and whatever that emotion is, right? And as a consequence, it made it very hard for me to stay on track. So I just had to change my story. She literally about the man, right? So in my 30s, I literally changed that. Like my self health and my health goals is about me and how I feel, right? And it has nothing to do with how other people feel about that. And now I was unconsciously, and I unpacked that in therapy, um, I was unconsciously sabotaging my health goals. And so a lot of times we really need to think about why are we sabotaging the goals with unhealthy habits? This thing that we really desire, we really want. What is the conflict and belief behind that? All right. So I challenged the action was to identify one unhealthy habit and replace it with a positive one and just become goal oriented with your actions. All right. Because um, the truth is small, repeatable behaviors either bring you closer to your goal or further away from your goal. Right. So the more we do a thing, the more likely that thing is going to be done. All right. And that's in the positive of our goal or in the negative of our goal. So the more I don't go to the gym, the more I don't read my affirmations, the more I don't eat healthy, the more likely that behavior is going to sabotage my ability to be healthy. But the more I do my affirmations, the more I go to the gym, the more I train, then the more likely that behavior will increase. What this means is that changing just one habit can have a profound impact on your success, because studies have shown that positive habits increase our goal achievement by 80%. I know that's something that you want, right? 80%, that's big. That's huge. All right. And then our last one was day 11. Stop saying yes to things that drain you emotionally and physically. And the action was set boundaries to protect your time and energy for the things that matter most. This is very hard to do, saying yes to yourself and no to other people. But we really have to stop saying yes to things that drain us emotionally and physically. All right. We have to learn how to do that. And then we have to learn how to deal with the emotions that come with, I used to say yes, but now I'm going to say no. And now I have to feel that feeling that comes about when I say no to this individual that I typically would have said yes to, or to this thing that I used to say yes to, but now I'm saying no to because I'm choosing to align my values and my behaviors. Right. Okay. Saying yes to everyone often leaves you feeling stretched, too thin, and unappreciated. Every yes that you say should always align with your values and your priorities. So when you learn what you value, you learn how to set those boundaries, you learn how to protect your time, you create a space for things that truly matter in your life. And I'm going to support this with a study, because studies show that people who set boundaries report higher levels of life satisfaction and lower levels of burnout. This definitely feels like the balance that you want in your life, right? So if it is, make sure you join that life wait list so you can learn how to love yourself and protect your energy today. All right. All right. So those were the 6 posts for this week. Do we have any questions about that before I move on to the myths about self love? Any questions? Give me some hearts on those if you like that conversation, or put something in the comments. All right. So I want to really talk about some myths about self love before we go into the question and answer, because I think that a lot of us, like I said, we came from very broken systems, broken backgrounds, and we get so much information from social media about what self-love is and how it looks. And this is not cookie cutter. So, but it is, I think it gives you a framework for what self-love truly is. And that was the intention also for this week, to really talk about what self-love and what self-love is and what it isn't. And we're going to go over that. So the first myth is that self-love is selfish, right? When the truth is, self-love is essential, not selfish. When you take care of yourself, you better equipped to love, and serve others. Listen, when you go into your self-love practice, whatever those practices are, some people may say that's selfish, but you're going to feel like you're being selfish. You're going to feel like you're doing something that is different, right? And so I just want to give you permission to say, no, self love is not selfish. And I really just, this word selfish is so funny to me, because it's like the ish, like you trying to be a little bit about yourself, right? Like blackish, hoodish, right? This ish, like love is self love is selfish. No, self love is actually focusing on myself, because the better I am for me, then the better I can be for you. Right. And we come from a very sacrificial society where we're like, I'm going to sacrifice all of these things, you know, to make you happy with the hopes that when I do this sacrifice, that you're going to give that back to me. And unfortunately, we found over and over again that that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. All right. The second myth is that self love means always that you're going to always be feeling happy and confident. I am on my self love journey, so I'm happy, happy, happy. This is a myth. This is just not true. The truth is that self love is about accepting yourself in every season, even on the tough days. It's not about perfection, it's about grace. It's about I'm going to love myself when I'm ugly. I'm going to love myself when I'm beautiful. I'm going to love on myself when I made a mistake. I'm going to love on myself when I got it wrong. I'm going to love on myself when I got it right. Like all phases of me are worth loving. You know how I know this is true? Because you want other people to do you like that. You want other people to accept your flaws, your inadequacies, with your so-called baggage, right? We want that. But then when it comes to ourselves, it's like, well, I can't love myself because I did this or I did that. And it's just a myth, right? Or that self love is this, because I'm loving myself, I'm going to feel happy all the time. That's just not true. Because sometimes in the midst of your darkest times is when you definitely have to sit and look at yourself with tears in your eyes and a knot in your throat and remind yourself that I love you. Even like this, even in that mistake, I still love you. Right. And we don't attract what we want. We attract who we are. And when we learn to give that to ourselves, what we end up doing is teaching and communicating to our 700 billion cells and the people around us that you have permission to love me in this state too. Okay. The third myth is that self love is indulgence, right? So this is not true at all. True self love isn't just about taking bubble baths or getting your nails done or going on retreats or like, it's not all about indulgence, right? It's about consistent choices that nurture our mind, body, and spirit, and having compassion for ourselves, right? So it's not just, and we can see this like, oh, I'm on a self love day. I'm gonna go get my nails done. I'm gonna go to the spa. I'm gonna go, get a massage. Yeah, that's an aspect of it. But true self love is, what if I wasn't able to do those things, right? What if I had other priorities? Does that mean I don't love myself? No, it doesn't, right? It's about these consistent choices that I make every day to accept me, to nurture my mind by the words I say, nurture my body by what I put on it, how I feel, how I clean it up, what I eat, right? And nurture my spirit by aligning with the one who created me and getting to know and build that relationship more strongly. I'm sorry. All right. Um, the last one is that self love. Oh no, this is not the last one, but I do have a caveat to this. So self love means ignoring others. Self love means ignoring others' needs. This is just not true at all. Self love is about balance. It's about you prioritizing yourself while also showing up for others. How do I know this to be true? Because the Bible teaches us about self love. One, it says that um, love is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. The first commandment was. And then the second was to love your neighbor as yourself. So this shows that loving yourself is not separate from loving others, right? They're interconnected. But to truly love your neighbor, you must first know how to love yourself. And one of the biggest things I see is us trying to love other people, and we haven't learned how to love ourselves yet. We haven't learned how to accept ourselves yet. We haven't learned how to forgive ourselves yet. And then we get in relationships where that is required and we don't know how to do it, right? So self love is not just about it's not about ignoring other people's needs. It's not about that, right? It is about finding a balance between my needs and their needs, right? And really, like the biblical terms say, um, loving thy neighbor as thyself, which means I have to learn how to put myself first, love myself first. And then there's this kind of ripple effect where now I can accept you, I can forgive you, I can do those things because I practiced it with myself. And then we talk about the law of attraction. Now I'm attracting the type of people that I can, this type of behavior is being reciprocated. All right. Okay. Um, and then the last myth is that self love is only for people who have it all figured out. That self love journey, that's for people who are healed, people who have been to therapy, people who got their jobs, people already in a relationship, right? When the truth is that it's not true. Because I don't think that a person has it all figured out, because life is a journey and life is constantly throwing us different events, different scenarios. Even the most stablest, financial, emotionally intelligent person, right, still has to figure out some things about their life because relationships shift. We see this happening in California. We see this happening when destruction happens, right? They got to figure out how to navigate through that. All right. So I don't, one, feel like nobody has it all figured out. We have plans, we have goals, we have ideas, we have dreams, and we have a plan on how we're going to get there. But to exactly know that what the outcome is going to be, that's just a fallacy. It's not true, right? So what self-love truly is these daily practices, that self-love is a daily practice. It's not about a destination. My father, he's 72 and he still practices self-love, right? My grandmother is 85 and she still practices self-love. We still on the phone and we still talking about, how could she accept the woman that she is today, right? And loving on her body changing or her getting smaller or the medication or her ailments, right? So this is self-love is a daily practice, right? So whenever you are in life, you can start, wherever you are in life, you can start loving yourself today. All right. So speaking of that, does everybody, is that cool? Give me some hearts if you agree. All right. So, but what is love? All right. Let's talk about what this thing of love is, because I think that that's another issue that happens around when we say I love you, or what is this self love? Well, we need to define what love really is. All right. And I'm just going to go back to the oldest book that I know of. So the Bible says that love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not pride, it does not dishonor, right? It is not self-seeking, it is not, it's not easily to anger, it keeps no record of wrong. Love always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. When I first read that, I was like, well, listen, what does that mean? What does that mean? Right? Because a lot of this is telling us what love is not, right? We know it's patient, we know it's kind, but it does not envy, it does not boast, and all of those things. So, my question to you is, if we apply some of these principles to ourselves, if we ask ourselves, are you patient and kind with yourself? This is how we know if we love ourselves. Are you patient and kind with yourself? Do you honor your needs and protect your peace? Right? Are you forgiving your past mistakes? Right? Because all of those things are the things that we know that it doesn't keep record, right? So if it's not self-seeking, if it's doesn't dishonor others and all of those things, are we doing those things to ourselves? Again, but we're wanting people to love us. So this is why I started this off this year off with self-love, and every year with the Stop It Now challenge, because I think we want this thing, but then we're behaving a way that is in direct conflict with the things that we want, right? If I can't forgive myself for something I did 10 years ago, I'm still holding on to that. Or I can't forgive other people for things that they did and errors that they did, but I want a loving, strong relationship and intimate connection. Those are in conflict with each other, right? If I can't be of service to other people, right? And I get mad and angry every time you say something to me, right? And I'm keeping a record of all the times that you did me wrong just to hold on to a reason not to love you. As I do to you, I am doing that to me. I sent out a meme the other day to my little Facebook group, to my big Facebook group, in DMs, and what it said was that emotions are they're internal, right? So the lady drew a sign and she was like, you can be angry at, just say, Joe Blow, right? And you feel like that anger at him is going to affect him, but it really is not, because it's reflected back to you. Or you can be frustrated with your boss and you think that your frustration, that your boss feels that frustration, but no, you feel that frustration, right? Or you can be bothered by somebody and you think you being bothered is affecting them, and all of that is affecting you. And all of that, we have to release it so we can really create a space where love can be nurtured, love can be practiced, because I do think love is a practice, right? We can be practicing it every day, and the more we practice it, the more we can really, I don't know, have experiences of true love in our life. So self-love is taking responsibility for your well-being. Self-love is not being self-centered or egoic, all right, or egocentric, right? Like for you, I have to say this. I see egoic people, right, or self-centered people, and I always say, like, the sun, all of the planets orbit around the sun, right? You know this, right? All of the planets orbit around the sun. But why are the planets orbiting around the sun? Because of what the sun is giving, right? The sun is giving something which is creating the stability for the planets to orbit around it. Now, we as individuals feel like we want life to orbit around us, people to orbit around us, people to be about us, but we're not giving anything, right, for that to be sustained, right? And so we have to give first love to ourselves and then let that expand to other people so that we can have our own orbit, right, of individuals around us to support us, to love us, and things like that. But a lot of times when we're self-centered and it's all about us, nothing's going to orbit around you, right? Not for a sustained period of time, because life is about giving and taking. How do I know that to be true? Because I'm breathing right now. I am taking a breath in and I'm releasing a breath. That is the most basic aspect to life, a breath. You give it, you take it. You give it, you take it. All right. And that is what life is about. Life, self-love is about setting boundaries to protect your energy, but self-love is not saying yes to everything and everyone. All right. So we have to learn how to protect our energy, and we have to be willing to go through the emotions that come up when I say no to something. Know that my no is a KNOW. Know that that does not align with my values. Know that that is out of my scope of practice, my scope of beliefs, the things so it's not it's like, know that I really do things that I'm knowledgeable of, that I know what affects me, right? And when I started looking at no as instead of like NO, and more like a KNOW, I am so okay with knowing myself enough to know that that does not work for me, right? Right? Now, I can still want that for you. Whatever that desire is, I can still want that for you. I just don't have to participate in it. All right. Self love is practicing forgiveness towards yourself. Self love is not about beating ourselves up for past mistakes. Listen, so many of us, as a therapist, as a coach, I work with, I would say, thousands of people who just don't know how to release their past, who live in, if I would have did this, if I should have did this, I should have made this decision at 25, but you 46 now. I should have did this at 21. I could have did this, but you're 50 now, but you're 35 now, right? Like, the time to do that thing that you feel like you needed to do is like now. But holding on to the shoulda, coulda, wouldas is only creating more of a gap between the person you want to be and the person you are. And the bigger that gap gets, the more dis-ease that you start to feel, the more weight. And then that gap is where all of these, I would say, contracting feelings happen. And when I say contracting feelings, I'm talking about vibrations, right? The shame, guilt, depression, right? Because you have so much space for this feeling of like contractions to happen. And we really need to start expanding our life with emotions like courage, right? Um, Even anger is like is the first expansive emotion, right? I'm passionate enough about myself. I'm passionate and value this thing enough that I allow myself to get angry. Because guess what? We don't allow ourselves to get angry. We will stuff our anger. We will dismiss our anger because we feel like that's something I shouldn't do. And it's not the anger, it's what we do with the anger, right? But if you find something that you're so passionate about, particularly you, that you have become so passionate about yourself that like your first step into expanding your life, expanding your emotions to positive, I guess people would say more positive, is to get angry. That is a great step, right? Now we just have to explore that anger. We have to explore the stories under that anger, right? And move you into like courage and like neutrality, right? Where you're kind of vibrating up the scale, right? And not wrestling with anger and desire and fear, anger, desire, and fear, and bumping down into these contracting emotions. All right. And then self love is about accepting your imperfections. Self love is not about striving for constant perfection. Sometimes the beauty is in our imperfections. Sometimes the learning is in our mistakes. I did it wrong. That's how I learned how to do it right. All right. And then lastly, self love is about committing to growth and self care. Self love is not about avoiding your needs or discomforts. Again, we go back to that emotion of anger, sadness, and things like that. We really need to have a better relationship with our emotional man, our emotional body, feel some things, and then process those things, digest those things, and, transmute that energy so that it can be working for your good. All right. Thumbs up for that section. Our myths and what love is and what love isn't. Okay. So I want to thank everybody for their questions. I did get some questions, not as many questions as I got last week, but if you guys have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat. If you're on Facebook, you can put them in the chat. I have my chat open on Facebook through this screen. And then if you have any for Instagram, just post them in and I'll read those. All right. So the first question is question one. How do I make time for self-care when I'm so busy? I got this twice. Um, and again, I think that this is a great question. And the reasons why it's a great question, because I think a lot of people don't make time for self care because they tell themselves that they're busy. I'm too busy for that. And, you know, again, when we go back to intention, self care is an internal thing first that builds. Here's how I want you to look at self care. If you don't have any self care practice at all, right? I want you to look at self care as an internal system or an internal seed that you plant. And we all know that when we plant a seed, it has to take roots. So the first stage of that is going to be what I tell myself about self care, right? Listening to the words I'm saying about myself, right? Listening to what I'm telling myself I can do and I can't do, right? Having a vision for what I want myself, because all of that is like building roots within my mind, within my heart, and all of that. Once I've done that enough, okay, that may take 3 months, that may take 3 weeks, that may take 3 years. All right. Once I start to do that, now when that seed starts to take root, now behaviors will come. So I'm noticing that instead of me now asking for a soda, right, at the restaurant, I get a water. Instead of me, going after the second, you know, plate, I'm like, I'm good, right? I'm being more intentional because now this seed is taking more root, right? And so now the behaviors are following that. And then eventually I'm like, oh, you know what? I do got time in the morning when I drop my sons off. I'm going to, go for a walk. Or you may even get the invitation for somebody to say, hey, we're going to start going on a walk. Can you go on a walk with me? Right? Um, that's a good question. And then we start incrementally, and then over time, we build a self care routine. And I think um, we have seen other people's self-care routines that say, oh, I, read a book for 20 minutes. I walk for 20 minutes. I go to the gym. And like, they built up to that point. They just didn't wake up one morning and do that. Like, you're talking about if it was levels to it, you're talking about an expert in self-care. And if you don't have any, if you're just a novice, beginner self-care person, yours is going to look very different, right? I can sit for an hour and meditate. I would never ask any person that, um, I would never ask any person to, um, to sit for an hour. I just wouldn't do that. I would say sit for a minute for a week, and then sit for a minute for 2 weeks, and then, and then sit for 2 minutes, right? So to K1's question, how much time is appropriate for self-care? It can be a minute a day if that's what you have, right? And then you grow that, right? So you're doing a minute today where you're just sitting. I'm gonna put my timer and I'm gonna put a minute. I'm gonna put my timer on and I'm gonna write good things about me. I'm gonna put up my timer on and I'm gonna write a vision for what my self-care is. This is where we have to start giving ourselves grace. This is where we have to start really doing things that create the behavior inside before we can show it outside. But what we tend to do is we tend to just jump into a routine because somebody else said do that, and it may not match yours. Like I'm not a morning person. I'm a night person. So I'm up in the mornings. It's just that's my nights, right? So for people who are like, I'm a 5 a.m. person, yeah, you 5 a.m. because you went to sleep at 8 o'clock. That's what they're not telling you. So they went to sleep at 8. They got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. They got their 8 hours of sleep, right? Because they turned in at 8 o'clock. You were probably still at work at 8 o'clock. You were probably still putting your kids down at 8 o'clock. But you're trying to wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock to match this person. It's like, yeah, you got to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Y'all on two different wavelengths. So to answer your question, K1, how much time is appropriate for self-care? However much time you have to have. That can be a minute a day. It could be 5 minutes a day. That could be a minute every other day. That could be a minute a week if that's what you want to start off with. You just have to give yourself permission to start somewhere. And then all of the judgment that floods in, we sit with that. And we say, well, I'm a beginner. We would never put our kids on a bike and expect them to know how to ride their bike. We would never do that. We would never put them in a car and expect that they'll know how to just drive the car. We would never do that. But we do ourselves like that. Like we expect to know and like how to do something like right off the bat, or that we should know. And it's just not true, right? It's just not true. So how much time is appropriate for self-care? However much time you need. However much time you need. All right. Because we have to start giving ourselves grace. All right. So question 2. What is the first step to stop comparing myself to others? And then I got it like, how can I stop comparing myself to other people? So I got this question twice too. So the first step, okay, and stop comparing myself to other people is awareness that I'm comparing myself to other people and giving myself grace about that. Last week I said this: comparing ourselves to other people is a learned behavior. We've learned that. I got compared to my cousins, to my friends, to my peers, right? So we learned how to compare ourselves to other people. So when we become adults, guess what we do? We will compare ourselves to other people. And we will then, because I don't feel like I'm where I should be, I don't feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be, or I feel like I should be where they're at, then we start to talk bad about ourselves or feel bad about ourselves. And I think that that's why we want to stop comparing ourselves. I think we can be inspired by other people, right? But the first step to take and stop comparing yourself to other people is just to become aware, right? When you start to hear yourself say, oh, he got this or she got that or this or that, when you start to feel that come up, stop it, right? Become aware and stop it, because only you can stop that story that's happening in your head. But if you entertain it, like, yeah, she do, and I remember we was in school together, when you feed the story, it's only supporting the behavior. So we want to stop feeding the story. We want to become aware that I'm comparing myself, and then stop comparing myself in the least judgmental way as possible. All right. So what does that mean? I'm going to redirect myself, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, girl, there you go comparing yourself again. You just so like, no, we're not going to judge ourselves. We're just going to go back to, oh, I was strolling in Facebook. Oh, I was on Instagram. Okay. And then the third thing, and you'll always hear me say this, what do you desire for your life? And really start working on who do you need to become to get that. And that's, again, why that Project Life program is being launched this year, because I do feel like life is a project and we really do need to start designing the life that we really want. And then we need to be held accountable. And sometimes that accountability is going to come from individuals who are not in our immediate circle. Okay. All right. So, Quinn said, I think it's important to stop it and also redirect the thought into something positive about yourself. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if we're not redirecting to, okay, I was strolling, then we can remind ourselves about what we do have, right? We can do something in gratitude and say what we do have. Good job, nephew. Absolutely. All right. Question 3. Any more questions about that or comments about that? All right, question 3. What's the okay? How do I stop procrastinating on my self-care routine? We talked about how to do that, small actionable steps. That was in the I think it was like day 6 or day 7. How do I stop procrastinating? I really think that we need to a deeper level to that though. Question is, I really think that we need to unpack some of our fears. right? We need to unpack some of our belief systems around self-care. A lot of us feel like self-care is expensive. Just let's say that. If I feel like self-care is expensive, right? And I feel like I don't have the money for that, but I want to create a self-care routine, then I have a belief that could be in conflict with self-care. All right. So remember, procrastination is an emotional thing, right? It's not about time management. It's not about smart goals. It is truly the overwhelm or the fear or perfectionism, some emotional thing that's happening or some experience from my past that created some negative feeling in me today that's causing me to not move forward with that experience. All right. Because of that, I'm going to have to create some type of, I'm going to have to understand what those beliefs are. Right. And then what are my desires and what are my fears? If we really want to get deep into this, into stopping the procrastination. And then we want to give ourselves grace because that's not an overnight thing. All right. So, how do I stop procrastinating on self care routines? I think the simple answer is like, do one thing at a time, small steps. I'm going to say live at your own pace. I'm going to see if my camera going to go up because sometimes it will. But I got this sign up there. It's a picture and it says live at your own pace. Right. Um, but I think that whoever sent this question, I think we know that it's these small steps. So I think that it's something deeper happening, right? Something really stopping you from really attaining the self care that you want for yourself. So the deeper thing to do is to really write down what is the self care routine that you desire. And then what are your beliefs about that? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's going to be expensive? Because those beliefs that you have about that self care routine can create this emotion inside of you that's actually stopping you from, you know, executing. Does that make sense? Okay. Um, a next question, how can I handle it when someone criticizes me and it feels personal? Okay, so how can I handle it when someone criticizes me and it feels personal? This is good. This is a good question. I wish I knew the context of this because I guess what's coming up is that it's so many levels to life. So on a in so I teach this course. I want to say this. I teach this course on emotional intelligence, and I talk about these paradigms. And there's four paradigms that I teach. The first paradigm is the victim paradigm. The second paradigm is duty. The third paradigm is achievement, and the fourth paradigm is integrity. All right. And what a paradigm is the way I see the world. It's kind of like your gargles, right? So the way you view the world is a paradigm. So that's why I want to know the context around this question, because how do I handle it if someone criticizes me and it feels personal? Well, if you're in a victim paradigm, right, where you see life is happening to you and, people always have something bad to say about you, then it's no way to fix that because you're always going to feel like somebody's taking it personal. You would have to switch your paradigm, right? And to either an achiever or to integrity. So that's why I really wish I knew what this question was. So how can I handle it when somebody criticizes me and it feels personal? Breathe. I'm a give the simple people thoughts about you is their thoughts about you. It's not has nothing to do with you, right? And I think that um, we have just become a society that is so sensitive. And again, because a lot of us live in the victim mentality, the victim paradigm where they feel like life is happening to them, or duty paradigm based off of what they should and shouldn't do, that it starts to feel personal. Like we're so egocentric. We are so focused on ourselves that any comment, any behavior, we feel like, oh, you did that because you wanted me to be mad, or you did that. And I think we just need to step away from that, because everything sometimes ain't about us. So how can I handle it when somebody criticizes me? I would, my simplest answer is be like, breathe through that and really ask yourself, why am I taking that personal? And thank you. And I'm saying thank you to myself. So when I'm asking myself, why am I taking that personal? Then I can do some self discovery. Is what they said true? Right? Do I always have an attitude? Do I always, am I taking it personal because there's some truth in it? If there's no truth in it, then I can leave that information with them. But I have to be willing to assess myself, truthfully. Okay. I hope that helped. If it don't help, could you DM me so we can have more conversation about that question? All right. I've been trying to break unhealthy habits, but I keep slipping. How do I stay consistent? Grace. That would be what came up in my spirit as I was reading that, just giving yourself grace. Um, practice makes better. So the more you do it, the more better you'll get in it. I've been trying to break unhealthy habits, but I keep slipping. The more, I think I said this earlier, the more you behave, take small steps and behaviors in a certain way, the bigger that's going to be. All right. And so, um, one, when we break habits, we replace them with different habits. So if I'm trying to um, break, um, I don't know, sleeping in, I'm just gonna like sleeping in late, or I don't know, whatever you're trying to break, there should be something that you're replacing it with, right? And then whenever you can't replace it with that, or you find yourself slip, I would say give yourself some grace. And the third thing is accountability. Getting somewhere to um, getting in a group, or getting around people that mimic the behavior that you want to see. Because when you're around people who mimic the behavior that you want to see, then you're more apt to have that type of behavior. That's why people go to the gym, right? Because people at the gym are working out. So if I'm around people who are working out, then I'm more likely to work out. All right. Somebody said, what is the opposite of a victim paradigm? So I don't know if it's the opposite, but it's an integrity paradigm. So integrity is that life is my mentor. It's here to teach me. That everything is happening to me for a reason, right? And so when we have a integrity paradigm, there's more alignment and purpose in life. When we have more of a victim paradigm, it's like, life is bad, life is hard, life is just against me, right? And we see that, we can hear that in the way sometimes people talk, right? Very much, this is happening to me. Why is this thing happening to me? And we can hear an integrity paradigm when people say, life is teaching me. I wonder what I learned from this situation, right? This is a lesson or a blessing, right? Thank you for that feedback. Or if it hurt my feelings, I want you to know that hurt, but I'm going to take what you said into consideration, right? So it's just, I don't know if it's the opposite. It's just integrity. Thank you for that question. Okay. All right. And then our last question, and unless I get some questions in the comments, is how do I say no to people without feeling guilty or like I'm letting them down? This is a good one. I got this one a couple of times. Um, so, how do I say no to people without feeling guilty or like I'm not letting them down? The honest answer, I got to say this. I am a therapist. I've been a therapist for 20 years. I now serve as a life coach, and I will be a doctor. Uh, So I'll be Dr. Sheila Little over the next couple of months. All right. My answers are coming from the intersection of all of these spaces meeting. So if you talk to a person that was just a therapist or a person that was just a life coach, everybody may give a different answer. But for me, given my culture, background, experiences, a lot of my answers is really coming from practical places, right? And I'm really not trying to sugarcoat this. How do I say no to people without feeling guilty or like I'm letting them down? When you first start that behavior, you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel that. I think the goal is to feel that, right? And then have a conversation with yourself about, is that feeling true, right? Like, this is, again, when we're starting to build back a relationship with ourselves, or our first time building a relationship with ourselves, and we start to say yes to ourselves and no to our external experiences, there's going to be a feeling that comes up. It's going to be a contracting feeling, a negative feeling, an uncomfortable feeling. And what we have to do in this thing called Valley of Despair, when we go to change, right? That's just the truth of the matter. And what we have to do is to sit in that, right? And know that I'm still safe and I'm still loved and I'm still important and I'm still enough, even though my body is experiencing this emotion, right? And then you do that long enough, you start to retrain your body now to not feel guilty, right? You start to actually feel like you're more honorable and you're more honest and you're more integritous, but you're not going to feel that way in the beginning, right? So how do I say no to people without feeling guilty? Practice saying no to people. And the more you say no to people and the more you allow the feeling to come up and have compassion for yourself as those feelings come up, then the less you're going to feel those feelings and the more it's going to become second nature for you. And that's the work. That's the work in changing. That's the work in shifting. It's really about changing who we are on the out and on the inside before we start to change who we are on the outside. And the truth of the matter is, you are letting them down, right? Because they expected you to do the thing that you've always done for them. And now you're saying, I can't do that thing for you anymore. And that doesn't feel good to them. So you are letting them down. Now, how do you feel about letting them down? Okay, you feel guilty. And I, I would question if it's guilt that you're feeling, because guilt would be a feeling that I feel when I'm out of line with my values. I think it's more of a tendency. I heard this lady say this. You have a tendency to say yes to other people. Now you're saying no to other people. And that tendency or that behavior, now you have a feeling about that because what you would typically do, you're not doing anymore. So I don't know if it's really guilt, because I don't know if that's your value, right? That they may be asking you to do something that you don't agree with. So you're aligned in your values. Guilt is when I'm not aligned in my values. So, yeah. And we all have a tendency of saying yes to things that we probably should say no to. And we have to learn how to say yes to ourselves and no, KNOW, while we are rejecting that request. All right. Any other questions? Did that make sense? Self-love is a very complex conversation. I love it though. I love the conversation. I hope that it resonated with you all. If it did, if it left you having some questions, listen, follow me for the continue the challenge. Make sure you join that Project Life waitlist. Again, life is an acronym: love of self, interactions with others, focus and energy. Join the Elevate in Life Facebook group, where I'm going to be doing more life lessons with Shiela Little throughout the year. Um, and I do want to say this before I go. I wrote this because I wanted to let you all know that love is all about intention. All right. The deliberate and purposeful efforts to show that we care, right? To show kindness and understanding. All right. Intention so what is intention? Intention is the conscious choice to act with meaning, aligning your words, your actions with your values. Okay. Love is not about these grand gestures, but it's more about consistency. All right. Thoughtful ways that we show up for ourselves and for others. So true love grows when we are intentionally creating moments that naturally build trust, connection, and growth. And that also nurtures trust, connection, and growth. So I want you to ask yourself, what is the intention behind the love that you currently have? Right? What is the purpose of it? And will it create the transformation that you desire? I ask that because I think that a lot of our intention behind our love has been trained to be transactional. When you do this, I'll do that. If you show up this way, then I'll show up that way. And it makes sense in the formula in the mind, but love is an emotion or a mindset. Okay. It's an emotion. And when you really get to like Jesus enlightenment, it's like a mindset. All right. And a lot of us are really not in functioning from love. We more are functioning from our desires. I think I have this. I'm gonna show this uh, for whoever is left. Do I have it? Oh yeah. Okay. I'm gonna show this to you guys. So we talk about vibrations and things like that. I'm gonna show this. If y'all see this, let me know. Put a heart up. All right. So this was a study done by a guy, I forget his name. But anyway, he talked about the vibrations of love, right? Or the this vibrations. So when you heard me talk about contracting, right? These are contracting. That means that shame gave these numbers. So shame vibrates at a 20, guilt vibrates at a 30, grief at a 75. Do you see what love vibrates at? It's an expansive emotion, right? And it vibrates at a 500. They say a person that has love has the ability, I want to say, to impact like 500 people or 500,000 people. Don't quote me on that. When I say a lot of us are here, a lot of us are still in desire. We have the desire to love. We have the desire to be loved, right? And so we're really vibrating very low on this emotional scale, right? And how do I know this? Because when we don't get what we want, what we desire, we get angry, right? So I'm pushing forward. I'm trying to vibrate high. I didn't get it and I get angry. Or we get fearful. I have a desire, but I don't really go after it. And then I go into fear, grief. Apathy is like, I don't care, guilt and shame, right? So a lot of people are really vibrating in this desire. And this is why I talked about anger being like, hey, you desire something, you feel like you deserve it. Hey, get passionate about that. And then get prideful. This is a very different pride. And then get courageous and then neutralize yourself, meaning become like unjudgmental and then become willing and accepting people for who they are and then rational reasoning and then we can experience love. But a lot of the reason I went into detail so much today about what love is and what love isn't and really gave some harsh maybe I don't say harsh truths, but straight truths, is because a lot of us are still here. We're in desire and we're misrepresenting it for love. And it's not love. It is desire. All right. Does that make sense? You can go look that up. I always use the emotional scales with my clients because I think that when you see it, then it makes sense. All right. And it's okay to have desires, right? But we have to take that desire, transmute that energy so we can start to expand, right? And not contract in our life. Okay. Any comments, feedback, questions, anything like that before I get off? Again, let's pray for those individuals in California. Let our hearts and prayers be with those in California during their time of crisis. If you like this, please share with a friend. Um, Share with in the group. Make sure that you're commenting. If you have any questions next week, we're going to go into interactions with others. I think it's going to be a great conversation, hopefully enlightening for you. And yeah, know that I love you. And till later. Have a great week.